It's tough being an outsider, and tougher still when that's how you're officially known. But that's the reality for China's army of migrant workers, registered to one part of the country, working in another. Zhao Xiao is one of those 200 million migrants. A recent arrival in Beijing from the neighbouring province of Hebei, her household registration, or hukou, is registered at her family's home, not here in Beijing. And that sets her at an immediate disadvantage. Zhao Xiao has fewer job opportunities than people with the Beijing hukou. She has to pay more for healthcare and housing, and her children will not be accepted into the city's schools. For Zhao Xiao and millions of others like her, getting a coveted Beijing hukou is a dream.
Beijing hukou is very important because some company, they ask for you have the hukou of Beijing, so it's better for people to have a good job in Beijing.
And top of Zhao's wish list are the benefits a hukou would bring to the child she plans to have.
In the future, I will have my own child, and if I can get Beijing hukou, so my child could also get Beijing hukou. It's easier to go to a good kindergarten and a good senior school, junior school, and a better university.
But changing your hukou, particularly from rural to urban, is no easy task. Some state-run companies do offer it as a perk, and it's also offered to Chinese students studying abroad as an incentive to return to China. But for the majority of the people, getting their hands on a city hukou like this involves navigating a minefield of bureaucracy.
Population expert Professor Duan Changrong says the current hukou policy is holding China back.
The reason for this policy was to control migration from villages to cities. But in the past more than 50 years, it's been shown that these kind of strict controls aren't good for economic or social development.
Reform of the system is already happening, with most of the changes focused on small and medium-sized cities. But Professor Duan says more needs to be done to change the system and improve the lives of China's 200 million strong floating population of migrant workers.
To reform the system, the most important thing is the city should be prepared to accept these people, to accept them as permanent citizens, and they should have equal rights for employment and equal access to social security.
Xu Zheyong, a prominent legal scholar and elected legislator in Beijing who runs a legal aid organisation, agrees that change is needed. But he doesn't think the hukou system should be scrapped. Not now, at least.
We don't think it should be completely changed, as this system is a result of history. If the policy is loosened now, other systems, like the education system, will have to be changed as well. For example, in Beijing, the standards for college admissions are relatively low, so people might flood into the city just for this. The changes will cause chain effects, but we definitely need to start reforms. We can't just wait.
Xu, an independent member of a district People's Congress in Beijing, says a new reform bill is already being worked on.
Our idea is that people who have worked in Beijing for over 1 year can have basic political rights, the right of electing and being elected. People who have worked here for over 3 years can have social security and welfare here. Kids who've been studying in Beijing for 7 to 10 years can take college entrance exams here. Amongst all these rights, the most important is the right for equal education opportunities. This is the reform plan we're working on at the moment.
Professor Duan says the children of migrant workers should be the focus of any reforms.
There are almost 26 million children, and they deserve the same access to education as the city children. This kind of thing is very urgent. The city government should invest in more schools for these children.
But until that happens, millions of people like Zhao will be hoping and waiting for change.
We don't know what will happen in the future if the government changes some policies. It's better for the people like me. It's coming from other city. I hope the government can change the policy.
Tom Mackenzie, BON.
Well, Sylvia, Zhao Xiao, the migrant lady that Tom Mackenzie spoke to in that piece, was saying that education is a top concern for her and for many, many people. She's saying that she experienced discrimination, not personally for herself, but other kids in her town where she's from. If they weren't from there, they were very much seen as outsiders. And when she has children in the future, she worries that they could be seen as outsiders here in Beijing.
Right. Well, another top concern is also the health insurance. Professor Tuan told our reporter that 80% of the 200 million floating population don't qualify for social insurance in the city in which they work.
That's right. Their only option, then, of course, having to go back to their original towns, is just not practical in this day and age. The professor also telling Tom that back in 1958, when the system was set up, it was designed almost to protect a lot of people from the cities. There weren't the resources, there certainly wasn't the infrastructure that we see in the big cities today, and so they didn't want these cities flooded with millions of migrant workers. Now, of course, China is increasingly trying to drive more and more people to the cities, and so obviously that's why people are calling for the change in the system, and that's why we've seen Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao say exactly that.
Right.
Well, do stay with us. Coming up is our question of the day.